And I first met David when he was leading a series of workshops on publication for the Poetry Global Network about 2 years ago. And it's a pleasure for me to share on his platform today. I'm going to share on my life as an editor and a publisher, and I'm also going to share the screen. So why is editing and publishing good for me? The first is I love writing and art, both mine and other people. And I'm qualified. I have a very broad knowledge of writing and art. Um, Now I believe that what is considered good art or writing is very subjective. And I'm a role model for using quality standards for selecting work, both in visual art and in writing. My other motivation is that I have no children, so I have no legacy. And if I'm able to discover or nurture and find a new talent, it has an element of legacy for me, which is very appealing. The way that can happen is I would give feedback to a writer who had a work piece rejected multiple times, and the feedback that I give them, if they would revise their work, could be selected for publication or an art show or an award. And I love hearing about other people's successes and how I help them. The other way is that I have the choice to publish or to nominate a new writer or an artist for their first publication or an award. And also, as I did in 2025, I selected for Old Scratch Press one new editor, and I did transition to her one of the tasks which I did, and to see her do that successfully gives me a lot of pleasure. The first magazine or newspaper that I was an editor for is called The Watch. I did it when I was 20 to 21 years old in 1983 to 84, and The Watch is affiliated with Brandeis University. Here is a map of North America, and here is where you see the little word Boston. That's right near where the university is that I attended. Here is a bigger piece of North America showing Massachusetts. The university I went to is about here on the map, and here's even a further detailed view. So on the far right side of the screen would be the Atlantic Ocean, and right here where you would see Waltham and the Rose Art Museum is exactly where Brandeis University is located. So that is where I went to school, and that is where the magazine and newspaper, The Watch, was physically located. Here is just the welcoming to the university as you drive in at the front. And here is an aerial view of the university. And here's another aerial view of the university. So this is what I looked like when I was 20 to 21. On the left side is me in my single dorm room, my junior year. And on the right side is the image of my graduation photo in 1984. And this is an example of the Watch newspaper, which was described as a special edition student publication from a specific era like the 1970s, and it was published weekly during the academic year. You can see the left side, it is mostly black and white magazine and newspaper. And on the right side is a list of my history with the magazine. From 1982 through 1984, I was a frequent contributor. I had about 10 works published. And in 1983, I joined the staff. Here's a little bit more about the publication. If you see on the far left, you see the word staff, and there's a business manager and a photo editor. But what was very unusual about this newspaper is that there was no editor-in-chief. And let's read about what the philosophy of the newspaper was. The Watch was founded on the principle of presenting an open forum for students who were unable to communicate their viewpoints through existing media channels. Our editorial policy is to consider for publication anything that is not racist, sexist, homophobic. Therefore, all articles are subject to the consensus of Watch members. The Watch does not take an editorial stand on any subject, even if every member of the Watch agrees with the viewpoint. The Watch rotates editors with each issue. We invite anybody interested in editing or writing to come to our meeting every Monday night at Gluck Lobby by our office in Usedan, which was the student union. So it's very unusual that there was no editor-in-chief for this newspaper. And this is the call for submissions. The Watch is accepting articles for the next special section on Black history. All articles must be typewritten, double-spaced, and delivered to the Watch office by 6:30 Monday, February 13th. And if you see on the right side, halfway down, there is my name when I became a staff member of the newspaper. And here on the left side is the first writing piece of mine, which they published, and it is called The Dolphins. I originally wrote it when I was 13 years of age, and the photo on the right is what I looked like when I was 13. The Dolphins. 4 hands together, pushing time, falling interlocked besides cheap furniture. Flesh-biting cheeks stapled, fingers touching noses, laughing, toes pinching hairs, tingling eyes extend into circular lips, reach for reflection, bent knees, straightened posture, head sway, wrestling, on shoulders rising. And of course, that little drawing of the dolphin with the mermaid, I drew that for the art section. And here, about 2 months later, was the first comedy satire piece that I wrote, which was published. It is a satire on classes offered by the university, and it's very time dependent. It was 1983 when Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States. I'm just going to read a few samples of the classes that I imagined that we were going to offer. Under self-improvement, creative suffering. Under business and career, money can make you rich. Home economics, how you can convert your family room into a garage. Health and fitness, high fiber sex. And crafts, self-actualization through macrame. And on the left side at the time is Blair. She was my love interest. And why did I join the staff? I was in college in my third year, and I was chasing Blair, who wanted to be the business manager for the newspaper. So this is what Blair said to me: "I want to be the Watch's business manager. Come with me." Okay, now. And that's how I got to the Watch newspaper with Blair. Now, why was I selected to be on the staff and an editor of the newspaper? See, on the right side is an Oldsmobile Regency 98 car, which my father gave me my sophomore year in college. So the first reason is I showed up when the meeting was called, and I already was a two-time contributor to the magazine, and I had a car to use for the newspaper. So that's why I was selected. And what did I do? These were some of the tools of the newspaper. At that time, everything was typed. There were no computers. So the left side is paper, an electric typewriter, and then an example of a typewritten page on the right. And here is a Xerox machine, which we had in the library. Before we would start the layout, we would take all of the art images and we would make 3 copies of them so that we would have more than one in case the first layout of the image didn't work. So these were essential tools for layout of the magazine, especially the art section: scissors, Scotch tape, and Elmer's glue. So we would lay out the images in the art section on the page and cut them out, and then either Scotch tape them or glue them to the page. One time when I was in charge of selections for the art section of the magazine, I allowed a poem to be published which people claimed it was obscene, that it was about fellatio. And I had to appear in front of the student council and defend the submission because the newspaper was at risk of having their funding removed for obscenity. So that's sometimes one of the actions you do. Another thing I did was drive to and from the printer. So after we had done all of the layout, we drove the sheets to the printer and had them printed. On the way to the printer, there was a Dunkin' Donuts, which was always a big challenge to make it to the printer and not just stop at Dunkin' Donuts. And then we had to deliver the paper to different stations around the campus. Typically, the newspaper came bundled in about 50 copies, and we had about 5 of these newspaper boxes around the campus. And we initially dropped off all of the newspapers in a room in the student union, and then we had about 5 people who put them in knapsacks and walked to the boxes and delivered them. The other thing I did during that time was Blair was very fond of jelly donuts. So I would go to Dunkin' Donuts and buy her jelly donuts and bring them to her. So whatever happened to Robert and Blair? In 1983, I had a single dorm room, which was the size of a closet. And Blair had the birth control pill. So we used both of them together. In 84, Blair wanted to continue our jelly donut study breaks, but I wanted to move on. Blair and I remained on staff at the Watch until I graduated. We had no children, and we graduated from Brandeis University. So at this time, I'm going to open the floor for any questions about my first editing, publishing experience from the floor. Either questions or comments. Mary Lee, I give you the floor.
Like I said in the chat, I'd love to hear more about what happened at the City Council Exchange and then how it turned out.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the newspaper, because it was a student newspaper, was overseen by a faculty member in the English department, and each semester each student had to pay $25 for a student activity fee, which covered about 25 different clubs. So we were at risk of losing maybe $100 to $500 a semester for the newspaper, and it would have folded. So both the faculty member spoke, and then I also spoke. I had prepared like a 2-minute speech, and then I had to submit it to the faculty member who, and I also had to give them a preview of the speech. So we met in front of the student council of the, and then the student council voted to keep the newspaper alive and allowed us to maintain our funding. A big reason why our newspaper was targeted was that there was another newspaper called The Justice, which was more mainstream, and they wanted to be the only newspaper. So they were the leaders in claiming that the work was profane.
What a shame.
Thank you. Thank
What
you.
a
Go
shame.
ahead. Go ahead,
Good for
Rick.
you. Robert, I got to say, man, to have, let's just say that fate would choose you to defend free speech, that's a very honorable thing. And I congratulate you, brother. That must have felt pretty goddamn good.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Poole.
Yeah, I have a question about there are drawings in the magazines. The images for the magazines, did they get from other places like physical magazines with scissors cutting out and so on, or you are using glue? I could see, so I think there must be pictures in it as well.
Right. At that time, in the early 80s, for art, the accepted thing was for the magazine images to be original and drawn. Now people take a lot of images from the internet. At that time, that wasn't available. So myself and another student who was a woman all were the artists for the newspaper, and we did all of the drawings. Sometimes you found an image that you liked in a book, and you used tracing paper to trace it onto a piece of paper, and then you would combine that with something else that you drew. but that was the most that people did for using part of an image that somebody else had created. It wasn't very common at that time.
So like stickers and so on. Put them in. No.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next section. So the next magazine and press I became an editor for is called Old Scratch Press, which was founded in 2023, and Instant Noodles, which was founded in 2021, and I became an editor in 2024. For Old Scratch Press, it publishes about 3 books a year that are short forms, and it's run by a writing collective. And the online digital magazine, Instant Noodles, has 3 issues a year. How did Instant Noodles come about? At the bottom left side is the editor-in-chief and founder, Diane Pierce. Diane wanted to create publishing opportunities for authors who are 40 years of age or older who are starting to be writers later in life. Her partner and husband, David, was also the co-editor, and he did all of the technical work for the magazine, including creating the magazine covers. In 2024, the magazine celebrated 5 years and ended the age requirement that submitters had to be 40 years of age or older. How did Old Scratch Press come about? Diane and David had a publishing press called Devil's Party Press with imprints for detective, mystery, sci-fi, and horror. And Diane wanted to create a separate imprint for hybrid short form, which would include poetry, flash fiction, and visual art. And she wanted to give the authors a chance to publish a book. Diane invited frequent contributors to Instant Noodles to apply to become an editor of Old Scratch Press, and about 10 of them stepped up, and the imprint started in 2023. So why did I join? I started publishing with Instant Noodles in 2021, and Diane became one of my most promoting publishers. She took my rejected submissions from prior issues and asked to publish them. She did slush pile rescues of my work, nominated me for awards, and she also, when she had press releases, she included my name and work. And for publicity events at local TV stations, she also brought me with her and her husband to promote the press and be on television. So I was confident anything I would do with Diane would be a success and would promote me. And I was also grateful for all the service Diane had done and wanted to return service to her. So that is why I joined the press. What did I do for the press? Or what do I do? I'm the meeting chair. I create for all of the meetings the agenda, run the meetings, and I edit the meeting minutes. I also help the group define what is short form, what are the genres, what's the size, how many pages, how many words. And my book was the second book published in the press, White Noir. I became one of the 2 publicists for the press. I formed relationships with features, online features, 3 in the United States, 1 in Europe, and 1 in India, and got features for all of the newly published authors and created all of the publicity banners for the events. I also created guidelines on how to write a poetry book review, wrote reviews of the other authors' books, and wrote a monthly blog. About 2 years ago, Diane asked the Old Scratch Press authors to become the editors of Instant Noodles, and I agreed to do that. For that, I would solicit submissions and select submissions in visual art, multimedia, and drama. I was also the backup selector for poetry, flash fiction. Created guidelines for evaluating visual art and flash fiction for selections. And last year, I started helping with the production of the magazine in WordPress and made the award selections and submissions for Pushcart and Best of the Net starting last year. What has been the success of Old Scratch Press and Instant Noodles? The first for Old Scratch Press is that it has survived for 3 years so far. And 2 of the books have been Amazon bestsellers, including mine. One of the secrets for making your book on Amazon a bestseller is picking for at least one of the Amazon book categories, a small category which has fewer submissions. So don't pick just American poetry. Pick a very small poetry subcategory on Amazon for your book, for one of the categories. That'll really increase your chances of becoming a top 100 seller. 4 of the books were nominated for the National Book Award in Poetry. We were able to keep the peace between the editors. The editors did proofread the work of the books in progress, only for proofreading, not for content and style. So there was no content critique, which helped really reduce conflict between the editors. And then we survived transition of 2 members leaving and 1 joining. Some of the challenges are for short form books, like poetry books, is that they rarely sell more than 100 copies. And we have about 3 editors who do about 80% of the work, including me. We did have one big squabble with unkind words where one book submission violated the short form guidelines. We had agreed that the book length would be maximum 60 pages, and this author's submission was 120 pages. We've also had challenges in attracting diversity for Old Scratch Predators and also Instant Noodle submissions. Another challenge has been recruiting. We had a goal last year to recruit 2 new members. No application fee. We had 12 submissions. 1 withdrew. 1 admitted to being a criminal, which we rejected them. 9 had very weak work samples, so we only selected 1 person when we wanted to. And then the challenge with Instant Noodles is that there's no submission fee. Our target number of works in the issue is about 40. We reject about 1/3 of the submissions because they don't meet the theme. And for the prose submissions, we reject about 10% for exceeding the word count. 90% of the submissions are poetry and flash fiction. We have very low genre submissions for multimedia and drama. We always count the number of acceptances by each genre and usually end up with 0 submissions in drama and multimedia. Each submission can be rated for quality from 1 to 5 stars on Dosimo, which is what we use for making the submissions. Usually acceptances have a star rating of 3 or higher. 2 years ago, I was able to get one multimedia submission, which was a solo guitar playing. The editor-in-chief said the work was juvenile, but it's up to you, Robert. I assigned it 2 stars and accepted it. So one of the strategies for getting the works that have few submissions is reducing the quality standards. The other is to ask the editors to submit in the genres with low submissions. And that results in, Robert, I usually submit in drama because we usually get no submissions in drama. Another challenge for the Instant Noodles magazine is that the holiday theme, which is published in December, is light and humorous. We usually get two-thirds less submissions than the spring-summer issue. The editor-in-chief says that authors don't like to write happy. They'd prefer to write Charles Dickens' Workhouse Misery. So this year for the holiday issue, we're removing that happy requirement for the prompt. Two other issues. The awards for the push card and the best of the net. For each of those awards, there's a maximum number of submissions. For example, for the push card, there's 6. Authors love to be nominated for awards. So as the selector this year, should the nominators only select works that can win, or should you choose the maximum number of submissions? Last year, I chose the maximum number of submissions, even though there were only few submissions that I thought we had any chance of winning. And then the other issue, should the editors be allowed to be nominated? In 2023, the Old Scratch Press editors voted that the editors are ineligible to be nominated for awards. And then this year, the editor-in-chief released that. So far, we haven't had any acceptors who are complaining that the editors are being nominated for awards and they're not being nominated. So I'm going to stop there and again give people any opportunity for any comments or questions on this publication, Old Scratch Press and Instant Noodles, and being an editor and publisher for those. No questions. Okay. Did you have one? Go ahead, Rita. Go ahead, Rusty.
Yes, Robert. The press, does it publish chapbooks and also books of poetry for authors?
So far, when we started 3 years ago, there were 12 editors. And our first goal was for each editor to be able to publish a book. This year, we would have completed that goal, and we're going to decide next year whether we're going to open it up to other authors. Most of the books of the editors were poetry books. How am I doing on time? I think that I'm almost. I have another section, but I think I'm going to end now. Can anybody give me a heads up on time?
Robert, I think you went on about 5 to 4. It's 4:16 now, if that means anything.
Oh, it's about. So I've been on about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So I think I'll just. I think I will end. I will end there. I did have another section on being a guest editor for Malawi literature, but I think I'll do that another time. And I'm just going to share that I do enjoy being one of the editors for Old Scratch Press and Instant Noodles. I currently am retired, and while the press is active from January through November, we're closed in August. I'm probably doing about 5 to 10 hours a week of work. So that plus the amount of time for me to create new work myself takes me to about having activity for about 20 hours a week, which is the number of hours of being busy I want to have being retired. And I'm still enjoying the work. And this year, the press will be publishing an author who joined last year, and I'm very excited to give her the opportunity and to help her be successful with her upcoming book. Thank you.
Dave, next up,